Good morning. Good morning. There's Alison. Morning to you, Alison. Good to see you. Morning, crew. Morning, team. Thursday, the 2nd of September. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Bit on the croaky side today. Been quite windy up here where we hang out, and the other day they were back burning all around the hills, and it was smoky and gnarly, and a little bit on the croaky side. So excuse me if I do a few little sniffles or coughs this morning, but other than that, I'm all right. Hopefully you are well wherever you are. Good to see a bunch of the regulars jumping on. Aaron, Alina, James, Michelle, good morning. Jimmy, Belinda, Grace, Trent, Shah. Fantastic to have you guys on. The regulars, always great to have you here. If anyone's new, Jason Witten is my name. Give us a shout out in the chat. Say new. Graham and Trent and Shah, good to see you guys. Been property investing over 20 years. Coaching property investors since 2003 across Australia and New Zealand. And along the way, learn a few things. And each day, around about 8:05. 8:05 is the number. We try to do it about 8:05. But, try to catch up with a few crew and have a bit of a chat on a Wealth Coffee Chat in the mornings. Just so you guys know, they are available in a podcast as well. So you can, if you miss them, you can rewatch them on YouTube, Facebook if you can find them. Usually the feed just disappears, or you can subscribe on iTunes and what's the other one? Spotify. Spotify is actually a bit easier. I find myself. I don't know about you. Anyway, there you go. So I hope you're well. Hope you're doing whatever you're doing well and happily today. Today I wanted to talk to you about some of these older assumptions we have about the ideas of location, best house, worst street. And Sam brought this up the other night. Is the sound off? Can you guys hear me? Give us a shout out if you can hear me or you can't hear me. Simon, all the sound seems to be working at my end. Hopefully it's coming out at your end. Let's see how we go here. Let me know, team. Let me know. All good? Okay, cool. Simon, it might be a bit of a challenge at your end, mate. Happy days. Everyone's giving me the thumbs up here. Phew. It's always interesting working with live stream stuff. You never know which bits are working and which bits aren't. But anyway, we're on track, so thanks for the shout-out, team. All right, so listen, the idea that these old adages, I think they might be old sayings, whatever they might be called in the real estate game, don't always hold true. The idea that location is still reasonable, excuse me, but right now what we're seeing is something very interesting in the market, because what we are seeing in the property growth movement at the moment is in the east coast of Australia, especially the east coast of Australia. What we are seeing, which is Canberra, which is Brisbane, which is Melbourne, which is Sydney, so all of the east coast of Australia, and even Adelaide, all the way to Adelaide, we're seeing a top-down boom go on, top-down growth pattern go on. And Sam showed this the other day when it came to what's happening in the marketplace. So let's dive in and have a bit of a chat, because there's some conflicting info flying around at the moment, and I want to sort of maybe talk about what that might look like. So worst house, best street, at the moment, team, this cycle, that's actually not working at all. It's the best house in the best street is actually doing the best. Let's cut to the chase and let's have a look at what. Oh, there we go. Go to that one. So I don't know if you guys saw this the other night, some really interesting statistics going, all right, what's going on in the marketplace? Which end of the market is leading the charge, the capital growth charge in the place right now. And used to be, I've been through this one before. you buy sort of at the middle of the bottom of the market, and the bottom rises really well, and et cetera, et cetera. But at the moment, it's the top end of the market, especially on the East Coast, as we were just saying, the 75th percentile, Sydney, more expensive houses rose faster, 9.3%. Melbourne, more expensive. Brisbane, more expensive. Adelaide, more expensive. Canberra, more expensive as we go. So they all were led from the top end of the market, team. They were all led from the top end of the market. And let's have a bit of a look at these ones, which were Darwin. Okay, Darwin was led from the bottom of the market. Where is it? Oh, so down here. I'll rub that out. Darwin led from the bottom of the market. Hobart led from the bottom of the market. And Perth led from the bottom of the market. And so interesting when we think about this and we go, so, okay, as property investors, what does this mean to us? How does that, where are we sitting? What does that, what indications are we getting on this, and how can we use that information to our advantage as we go along? So tell me right now, team, what do you think? What do you think's happening on the East Coast of Australia when it comes to this phenomenon right now? Give us a shout out in the chat. Maybe pontificate this morning. What do you think's making people buy better or more expensive properties right now on the East Coast of Australia? I've got my thoughts on this one as we roll along, but I'd love to hear what you guys have got to say in the chat. So I'm going to have a quick sip of my coffee, maybe just chuck one or two words in the chat just to quickly, what do you think might be driving that right now? So let me know. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. Dane is on it. I reckon it's low interest rates too, Dane. Yep, I reckon you're right. Low interest rates. All right, low interest rates right now. For me, I think that is probably the number one driving factor where we have it's, there could be some stay-at-home issues for sure. People are saying, well, bugger it, I want to live where I am. I want to work where I live, and I'm going to upgrade my home, which is fabulous. The mechanism right now that I believe is allowing this is low interest rates, okay? Low interest rates. Because what has happened, we've had a borrowing boom, team. A borrowing boom, right? Which leads, tell me. Now, for all of you guys, we understand, price to value ratios when it comes to us and building our property portfolios. But, do you think, tell me this, do you think, an owner-occupier is as astute or emotionally capable of walking away from a deal if they're going to miss out? And what is happening is we've had low interest rates coupled with low supply, and people have been paying more for nicer properties, okay? So why wouldn't you? Now tell me this. If you're buying power, if you're buying ability, you were just sitting there, and you go, one moment you can buy a $600,000 property because that's what you could afford, and then the next minute, interest rates drop 2%, and your buying power goes from $600,000 to $800,000 for a house. Tell me this, team. Are you going to go, oh, well, do you know what? I'll just buy a $600,000 house now, thanks. What do you think's going to happen? Tell me. So that's what happens, all right? So everyone is able to afford a better property, and people want to live in better properties. So right now, what we believe is happening is the flight to quality is leading the charge, all right? And Sam's been saying this flight to quality for ages. The idea that live, work, play, health, ability to live in a 20-minute neighborhood and so on has been so important for the millennial generation. The baby boomers, live 100 miles away from the city, are used to driving in traffic. They've just resigned themselves to that concept. But the next generation of highly aware, very demanding homeowners aren't wanting, the piece of rubbish property in Nowheresville. They don't. They won't settle for that, team. And there's a big change coming through that demographic right now, and we're seeing it. I don't know what's happening in Perth, Hobart, and Darwin. Well, let's have a little look at the supply chain in those cities. And, for the most part, certainly Hobart and Darwin and Perth, their wages might be playing a part in this too. So, certainly I think when it comes to Hobart, you've got low wages in Hobart. And have a look at this down here. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to zoom in a bit. All right. This was the total listings. So that this just came out a few days ago. The number of properties on the market being listed for sale. And you have a look at Hobart. It's just insane. All right. So there's one, check it out. There's not that many properties. 1,160 properties. Excuse me. There's probably a few more floating around, in nooks and crannies. But the total listings are just down, all right? And so nothing to buy down there. Investors are diving in, and investors, unfortunately, like to buy in the bottom end of the market, and so on. So we're trying to make some sense of what's going on when it comes to Hobart and Darwin. There's low listing volumes in these cities, okay? And we have a look at Perth, and again, we try and make some sense of Perth. For me, I wouldn't invest in Hobart or Darwin. I don't think they hold up for me long-term economically. The numbers might make some sense right now, but I wouldn't be doing it. Sam and I've talked about this with you guys again and again. Some short-term numbers, don't get caught up with short-term numbers that look great on paper now, but in 15 or 20 years' time, economically, is Hobart or Darwin going to be as strong as Sydney or Melbourne? And the answer is no, or Brisbane. The answer is no. It's just not going to be. And for me, I'm going to put my money where the economics are strongest for the future for me and my outcome. It's more likely I'm going to get the outcome that I desire in those other cities, and probably some other outcomes, some other benefits that are driven by those big cities. Things like Brisbane winning the Olympics, things like sporting events in Melbourne. There's lots of other benefits those larger cities will attract that you don't know anything about right now, that will benefit your properties in those cities. The largest public transport infrastructure project in history. Team, where's the largest infrastructure project in history being done right now, construction-wise? Tell me in the chat. Tell me in the chat right now. You guys give me a shout out. Where is it? What city in Australia is I think it's the $6.8 billion largest public transport infrastructure upgrade in history being done right now? It's underway. Tell me where it is. What do you guys think? Yep. Belinda, it's not Bris Vegas. Interestingly enough, it's Melbourne, team. Melbourne. Bradley's on it. They're literally, the train line in Melbourne is pretty expensive. They're redoing the ring, and they're putting all of the trains underground in those suburbs and adding another bunch of things and whatever it might be. Some of those tunnels are pretty expensive too, Zafar. But think about that, team. They're not going to do. It's not going to happen in Hobart, guys. Listen, it's not going to happen in Darwin, is it? Like, think about that. The snowy hydro might be a bit bigger. It'd be interesting to see what that one looks like. And that's a good one, actually, Graham. When you bring that up, because that project would be a classic example to have a look at as a bit of an attraction strategy, right? So think of this. They're going to spend billions of dollars on the snowy hydro, and you think, oh, that'd be pretty cool. Wonder how long that's going to take. And I don't know, Graham. Maybe if you know a little bit about it, chuck it in the chat. But let's say it's going to take 10 years or 5 years for that project or whatever, how many years to complete the project. So what happens is all of these resources, money, and people pour into a small town in the short term. And then what happens? That town explodes, and then, people buy properties and they rent them off their head and everyone's making it and killing it. And then what happens is, boom, everyone leaves that town. There you go. Pemi's actually right in the middle of this right now. Okay. So what happens, and we saw this, happen in Western Australia. So we have been in every town of Australia when it comes to investing, team. I don't know what's going on there. Come back here. We have, when we started I actually started in 2000 buying properties. Actually 1999. Yeah, it was just before the Sydney Olympics. I think it was 2000. Can't remember when that was on. 22 years or something. Do the math on that. Anyway. Perth, or more accurately, Karratha, Port Hedland, not Katoomba, Kalgoorlie, these places, Gladstone, these places had billion-dollar projects going on, and those towns were crazy booming. I remember Port Hedland. Sam and I were buying properties in Port Hedland, for $99,000, renting for $400 a week, like high-fiving and crushing it. Those properties went from $100,000 to $200,000 batting an eyelid, and we're like, we're out of here. This thing's going to implode. Those houses went to $1 million, and we're like, did we make the wrongest choice? And then literally the sort of 8-year cycle, those properties went up and they property went down. When all of the infrastructure money left town, the local prices just went down, because the locals didn't have to pay $2,000 a week. Yeah, $1 million bucks for a tin shed in Port Hedland. The locals couldn't afford to pay $2,000 a week for rent, team. They could afford to pay $250 a week for rent. That's what happens. Anyway, I'm getting a bit distracted, but it was great. Great you bring that up, Graham. So you go, do I go to that place? Let's say the snowy place. Pami's in there at the moment. Her plan is to capitalize on where she's at, and I think that's a smart plan, Pami. Those places, if you look at the historic behavior of any of the other projects in Australia in those smaller towns, Pami, there's a boom. Capitalize on that and migrate your money to somewhere way more stable. Take advantage of it. If you're in there already, then take advantage of it. I would not be, if you weren't in there already, like Pami, I wouldn't be running in there trying to time it and get it right, okay? I would be saying, that's good. I'll back myself in Melbourne right next to the new train line that they're spending $6 billion on as we go. Anyway, but it's a good conversation, isn't it? This stuff is fantastic. I love the idea that we can chat about this stuff and start to think smartly as property investors and make sure we, rationalize where we're at with this stuff, okay? But you have a look at this team. The listings are down. Like the existing listings are down significantly in most of these places. Hobart, just an anomaly in itself. But Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Canberra, all down in listing changes. All right, Melbourne's the one at the moment that's had really the harshest experience when it comes to lockdown and COVID. Melbourne will bounce back super strong. I have no doubt about that. But Adelaide, Canberra, Brisbane, and Sydney are depleted of existing real estate. Depleted team. And it's not going to get any better anytime soon. By the way, ladies and gents, the properties that actually people want, which is the quality end of town. The quality end of town. Everyone following along? Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, give us a shout out in the chat if that made sense. Give us a thumbs up or whatever you reckon. But it's always good to talk through some of those stats that come out and think, what does that mean to me? Right now, this growth cycle is being led by flight to quality, and it's being fueled by low interest rates. Those interest rates aren't going up anytime soon. They will not go up significantly in the next 3 to 5 years. That's my call, and I think this is my little long call out there. I think we will be sub 5% interest rates for the next 30 years. The next 30 years. We're on the crack cocaine right now, which is low interest rates. And once you're here, you have a look at anywhere around the world, any other country around the world that has arrived at low interest rates like this, they have never been able to claw interest rates back up to any significant amount, or it would absolutely implode the country. Check that out. That's what I'm calling. There you go. I'm sure you can. Ellison, there's always a way to maneuver and get yourself in those markets. Yep, I think Melbourne is still an excellent, strong market to be involved in, for sure. All right, gang, that's about it. Wealth Coffee Chat, done and dusted. You guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out and being good sports when it comes to these chats, because it's good to get a bit of interaction and hear what you guys are up to as well. As always, chuck in the chat if you got any questions. Always happy to answer them live, or I'll read afterwards, and we will maybe circle around and do another Wealth Coffee Chat on any questions, any concerns, anything you want to ask. So there you go, team. You guys stay well, stay out of trouble today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow around about the same time, 8:05. As always, you guys take care, and